on in. The water's fine. Get sucked in by the Triptide.
Word.
Word. Welcome back to another episode of Triptide, the only show where you...
We have with us our special guest, Frank Wilson.
Welcome
Hello.
back, Frank. How you been?
Doing good, man. Great holidays, great Christmas presents, and I'm just happy to be done with classes this semester.
Happy second day of Kwanzaa, everybody.
How many days is Kwanzaa?
I want to say 7, but I cannot say
I
that
do not know.
affirmatively.
Can we get a Kwanzaa expert in here? Our Kwanzaa expert on
My,
hand.
my phone's on the table.
So, one of the first things we have to address is finishing off our comments. I have 2 I wanted to look at today. Obviously, the ending of Week 5's comments included polytheism versus monotheism. So, who'd like to start there?
Is that where we're starting?
Yeah, we have that, one other comment, and then we'll branch off to some more obscure topics, less scripted.
Is he asking which is better?
Well, he just gave us a...
Like a
just-
final showdown?
Shimon McGee gave us a long list of things we talked about, and the very end being...
Tier list.
Monotheism versus polytheism. No, yeah, tier list. Monotheism, polytheism. Where are they on the tier list?
Well, if we're talking in today's standards, I think monotheism is probably an S tier.
Right, S tier,
and
based off
polytheism
of population.
is B tier.
Right.
See, I'm going to have to flip the script here. As a lover of the Greeks, I love polytheism, especially because I think it is a religious organization that mirrors Earth, rather. Obviously, monotheism is more conceptually often that God is incredibly different and, you know, all of the problems of Earth don't exist. I think polytheism's just fun. I like the idea that even in heaven, it's just one God who's absolutely blackout drunk. And the other gods are like, Dionysus, like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know where I'm at.
It's cool because some of the stories, I mean, like, the stories are just amazing. Like, I mean, I guess I don't really know a whole lot about monotheism either. Like, the stories. I mean, I know some stories, but...
Yeah,
Not
well,
like
you know,
in depth.
You know Christianity.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, the story's there, but, like, it's not like Dawson was just talking about where you just have a God that's blackout drunk all the time, and there's not, like, you know, like, massive revenge and, like, you know, love and death and, you know, like, dramatic things.
I think something that's also interesting is how it seems to solve a lot of issues on the understanding of just... Well, yeah, we're guessing. You know, I feel like they kind of just know they're guessing in polytheism. I think monotheism sometimes has conflicts that are harder to wrap your head around when you're trying to get invested in either the story or religion, because it's a concept of if this is one entity and it does things that seem to have different motive or different personality, it can make it hard to attach to. Whereas I think polytheism, they're pretty much just like, well... These things are happening because it's different people, and they have entirely different views, and morality is, you know, it's not implied.
You excuse my ignorance, everybody, but isn't Hinduism polytheism?
If I'm correct, I think Hinduism is polytheism in the sense that Christianity is polytheism. Now, my religion
really?
teacher told me polytheism doesn't exist, actually. Or monotheism doesn't exist because he thinks all religions are a form of polytheism.
Interesting.
And obviously the concept being Christians are going to view it as monotheism, but outsiders will say, well, you have Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit. That's
true.
3.
Well, that's the thing. So
I get that.
I wonder if it's more of just, like, there's probably not really labels. I mean, because, like, if you were to ask, you know, someone who's a Christian and they view Christianity as just a relationship with God and they believe that God came to the earth as Jesus Christ, but Jesus Christ wasn't a different person, you know, same thing as the Holy Spirit, then that's monotheism because it's just one being, right?
Yeah, I think in theory, the problem being outside of Christianity, it can't be viewed as monotheism, which is why he labels it polytheism. Because, again, you look at other religions as mono or polytheistic that might consider themselves monotheistic, just by the way they label things.
Right.
And to get to Hinduism, I think that's vastly more polytheistic, yeah. But I think ultimately they believe they're all one god. He just takes several forms.
Ooh,
I could be
cool.
totally wrong, but
Okay.
I think Vishnu is the same god as like whoever else,
I have
and
no
they're all
idea.
just different, like I don't know, forms or levels of his interaction with the earth.
Maybe before next podcast, we should do a bunch of research on surviving forms of how we would define polytheism, and then maybe revisit this conversation.
I think I think what we do know is that the Jews believe in Cthulhu, and they had a big war with the Christians, who of course believe in the flying spaghetti monster.
Mhm.
So I think if we could research things like that, so we would be more accurate
Definitely.
when we
I
talk
think
about
that's what
them.
the Crusades were, if I'm recalling correctly.
They're about the flying spaghetti monster.
I did want to mention briefly one of my favorite religions, which is the invisible pink unicorn,
S
and
tier.
it's S tier to me.
for sure.
It's just a theory that basically there's this invisible unicorn, and it's pink. So we know that it's invisible, of course, because we can't see it.
Right.
But we have faith that it's pink. I thought that was a pretty cool religion just to exist somewhere on this earth.
Definitely S tier. Definitely.
When you were talking about Dionysus, I am currently reading a book called A History of the World in 6 Glasses, and it's super interesting. It starts off with beer in Mesopotamia, because like beer is safer to drink than water, and then it goes into wine, and wine in Egypt, and then Greece, and then it does rum, coffee, tea, and then Coca-Cola. But for wine, one of the chapters is how to drink like a Greek. And so the Greeks believed that only Dionysus could drink like perfect wine. When you drank wine as a mortal in Greece, you had to water it down. And they had like specific ratios of
Didn't they
how many
drink out
parts
of like
water, how many parts wine.
bowls and stuff too?
Yeah,
Like, they
so-
didn't really drink out of cups.
The rich obviously would drink out of like gold and silver bowls.
Right, but
So
they all
we've
had, like-
lost a lot of those, but there were specific like jugs, and they had a specific name, but I'm blanking on it right now. But these pots have like super cool patterns on them.
Yeah, like paintings like on the bottom of the bowls.
Yeah,
So
so
like when
we-
you drank it, it was like a picture of Dionysus.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of what the wealthy drank out of just because pottery lasts longer than gold or silver. But I just thought that was very interesting how they treated wine. And there was a person at like every party, essentially, that was like a sober monitor. So you didn't drink wine to get drunk. And that's partly why they put the wine in there. You were trying to always find this balance between being tipsy and being sober so that you had a better stream of consciousness and you could participate in conversations more.
And
It sounds like a problem that has lasted through time.
I like the idea of they'd always pour out libations and stuff. And I always thought about, it's 7 years into the Trojan War. You're starving. Most people are dead. You haven't seen your wife in 7 years. You finally have a break in the war to talk about the death of Achilles. Spoiler alert. Like you finally have a break to just relax and honor him in these feasts. And your life has been awful for years. And there's this great feast prepared. And then just that like half hour waiting for them to make all their sacrifices must be the most painful thing in the world. Like sometimes it's like my family wants to say prayer before we eat and I'm like, oh, I'm just so hungry. Imagine if that prayer took like half an hour and also they poured out most of the wine. It would just be
And
like,
then,
oh, like I'm starving, please.
Slaughtering animals like right in front of you. Like, all right, everybody, sit down for dinner. Right? Who wants to say grace? Oh, Jimmy, you want to slaughter the goat tonight?
Take the nicest burger and just throw it in the ocean for Poseidon. I'd be so mad.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it's been a really interesting read. I'm on coffee right now, And I just learned that coffee originated in Arabia, which is crazy. It came
Makes
from the
sense.
Middle East, and
Yeah.
then it like conquered Europe. So I'm in like the middle of the book right now, but highly recommend.
So our next comment to get through, and then we're all caught up, is okay. If you could teach a class on one subject, could literally be anything, what would it be? And why would you choose the decreasing social value of the high five? Man, I did not expect that. I've already read that before, and I had to read it a couple times. One, because I'm blind, but two, because I was like, that can't be what this says. So I guess our question is, why is the only thing you'd want to teach the decreasing social value of the high five, guys?
Wait, what? That's the question? Or I thought it was I thought there was two questions in there.
No, it's if you could teach a class on anything, why would it be the decreasing social value of the high? He chose for you. So you're not the first question doesn't exist.
I don't agree with that. I don't think there is a social. I don't think there's a decrease in the value of a high five.
COVID has definitely decreased
No way,
the
man,
value
dude.
of
There's
the
air
high five.
fives. Air fives. They still last. Air hugs, air fives.
I
Not to mention,
feel-
I've even betted with high fives before. I
Well,
bet
that-
you 1,000 high fives. I'm
Yes,
gonna hit
but
this home
how
run.
long has it been, huh? Have you stopped
I guess
betting
it's
with
been a
high
couple-
fives?
I guess, but that's because I have money now.
Maybe money overtook the value of those high fives, and the currency of high fives have dropped.
So all right.
You've
So then-
introduced so many high fives into the market.
So we have so now the way I see it is we have two dilemmas here. It's not I argue that there's not a decreasing value in the high five. I just think maybe it exists on a demographic level. So like children under the age of 13 value a high five the same as they always have.
Mhm.
And then it peaks when you're like in your 40s.
Your argument is that the high five's not decreasing in value, but it decreases with value over time per society or per
I think
generation.
there's highs and lows because think about it. I mean, my dad
Well,
gives
there
me
are
high
high
fives.
fives and low fives.
There are low fives, but I think the high five is superior.
Has the low five increased in value with the decrease?
I'm gonna be
of the high
honest.
value?
I think anyone who bought stock in the low five made a mistake.
Yeah,
I
big
think
mistake.
if anything, it had very low value and then decreased. I
I
don't
would say
think
the
the low
high
fives
five's
ever
only
picked up.
competitor is the fist bump. That's
Oh, for sure.
I'd say
And they
how
don't
about this?
merge.
So
Like,
how
you
about no?
can't
They don't. You
exchange
can't
fist
do
bumps for
no.
high
And then the
fives.
handshake comes in every once in a while and screws everybody up. But I don't think that's really a competitor. I think you're either a high five guy or you're a fist bump guy. But
Yeah.
it switches for every person because they sometimes they're high five guy, sometimes they're fist bump guy.
And I feel like that is part of puberty.
So what
Yes.
about the dap up though? Is that
I think
is
it's-
that part of this equation?
Is that a combination?
Well, the
no,
dap
'cause
up,
it's a
you know-
handshake. It's technically a slap and then a handshake and then a fist bump. So maybe the dap
it
is
has merged both forms of currency.
not only both, but even the outlier of the handshake.
Yeah.
Wow.
All
I
right.
think, well, but so to get back to the question though, you have to teach an entire class about the high five.
But it's
Not
just
even
why
just
would you
about-
pick the high five to teach your class on?
But what? So
But, I mean, think
what
about
would your
this-
class be about?
Okay, if it wasn't,
Give me-
supposing in
give
some
me
wild
your
universe.
semester-long lesson plan of the decreasing social value. of the
So
high
I would
five.
definitely start with the history of the high five.
Right.
You know, and I would do like
Dodgers.
Michelangelo's David, and I would just be like, he could not give a high five. He had no arms, therefore the piece was flawed. You know, and then I would go into the Sistine Chapel, and
Okay.
you know, God is touching that guy's finger on the ceiling.
Sure.
And that is, you know, an attempt at a high five, but
that
God
guy.
couldn't quite reach him. He wasn't enlightened enough. And only in the modern era were we able to develop the high five
wait,
at the
is
height
that
of its power.
is that the star of the high five? Then it's the finger touch.
No. I think the start of the high five comes somewhere in the early revolutionary period in America. Because I
'cause they
believe
were hype.
something as great as the high five, of course, came from America.
Right.
And I think it happened when George Washington sailed the Delaware at night.
Yeah.
And the British didn't see them coming, and they were like, "All right, guys,
Well, no, it's the Germans.
Right. It was the German
the Germans,
mercenaries.
of course." And they they were pulling a gank on him, right? And they were sneaking up on
The
him.
Hessians.
And right before they got out the boat,
Hessians.
Hessians.
yeah, right before they got out the boat, Washington looked to his lead command and he was like, "All right, bro, we got this." And that cemented the
All right,
high five.
Was the first high five? Was it solid or was it was it a whiff?
It was solid. I think if it was a whiff, it wouldn't have caught on.
Are you guys actually being serious? We have a photograph of the first high five.
But if it was photographed, there's no way, because if it was photographed, then it can't possibly be the first high
That's
five.
what I'm
'cause
saying,
There
like,
must have been a high five.
Why would they
before the
photograph it if it didn't exist yet?
What the high five is pretty recent. It was invented in like the 70s or 80s.
There's
by
no,
the
no.
LA
I'm
Dodgers.
with
I disagree.
Dawson
No,
on this. I think George
it's literally the
Washington.
first
George
recorded high
Washington
five.
gave a high five to his dudes on the boat after they killed all the Germans.
And then it cemented
Right.
in American culture. And so how did the fist pump come about? Which one of you wants to take the fist pump's origin?
That's like when maybe that's when hip hop became popular
Popular.
So when hip hop was
Hip-popular.
popular, they started giving fist bumps because it was cooler than just a high five.
I think
What
it
was the
comes from
first fist
boxing.
bump? Like, how did it arise?
I don't know.
I think so. All right, picture this. It's 1920s.
Right.
All right, we are going through the height of the American economy.
Cinderella Man.
hmm There's a huge boxing match in New York. Boxing has just taken the scene.
Okay.
Everyone's getting into it. Both boxers go for right to their opponent's face, and boom, their fists lock right in between them, and it becomes the first fist bump.
I think that's cool. But I would like to suggest
Okay.
another situation. All right, so picture this. The year is, I don't know, 1800 something.
Okay.
So there's
My favorite year.
Have you seen the picture of the all right, this is what I'm tying it to. So have you seen the picture of the two bullets that they found that collided into each other?
I thought that was World War One.
Was it Battle of the Bulge or something like that?
I've seen that picture, but
I don't know.
can't tell
Anyways,
you the
so these
battle.
two bullets collided, right? They found it,
Yeah,
and they were like,
super sick.
"What happened?" And the guy was like, "Here, come here. Let me show you what happened." And so then he's like, "My fist is a bullet. Your fist is a bullet." Fist bump.
Hmm.
But maybe okay. I actually, you know what? I retract. I think Sean's is cooler.
Wow.
Momentous.
Really, really stand behind
So
that.
chapter 1 is God attempting the first high five.
right.
No,
Chapter 2
no,
is
no.
George Washington.
Chapter 1, that's chapter 2. Chapter 2 is God with the finger touch.
Right. Chapter 1 is how they failed at the original.
Okay. Then 3 is George Washington. I'm just trying to get your semester coursework down.
Well,
I'm trying
to be
build
fair,
your syllabus right
I
now.
have a more recent approach. I think the boys were playing Thy Holy Smash back in the day.
Okay.
And it was the Crusades, right? And they were battling over, the flying spaghetti monster and such. And they were like, we're going to settle our religious differences with a game of Smash, one stock.
Super Smash.
Mhm.
Which Smash?
The original Smash.
Thy Holy Smash. You already said.
Thy Holy Smash.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And both of them were, Captain Falcon mains, and they went for a Falcon Punch at the same time. And when the
Ooh.
Falcon Punches connect
Right.
and it
Oh,
explodes your
man.
TV,
Yeah.
I think that cemented the fist bump as a historical monument.
Makes sense. It does.
It makes
does
sense.
And
make
it also,
Makes
I
sense.
think it came from a different region than the United States, and then we kind of adopted the fist bump, which is why it's kind of mixed in over the inherent high five, which
Right.
always exists. But the fist bump's kind of a more foreign level of communication and
All right.
currency.
So how about this? High fives were introduced by God, although they failed. And then George Washington
It took George Washington.
and then George Washington cemented it, right? And then we have the fist bump. But we're forgetting about the handshake. And I know this is a small player, it's not really a big deal, but I think it's important for the semester long class. I think you have to go through the history of just human connection in total. So the original handshake, right? That was the Spartan thing where they grabbed each other's under their wrist to see if they had a blade, like Assassin's Creed or whatever. Like I'm pretty sure that's how it started.
I thought they started with feet, and they would try and join feet.
You know,
and
I
then
think
they were
you
like,
might-
guys, there is
I
a
think
better
you
way
might
to
be
do
right.
this.
I think they were giving
There
you
has to be another appenditure we can use.
I think they were interlocking toes before interlocking hands. I think you're right.
So one thing I was thinking about, I have a friend who disagrees with me. I won't name him, but would it be kind of cool if we still had a Coliseum, or would it just be awful and gruesome,
Well, what do you mean
Well,
like gladiatorial battle?
like fight to the death?
But
Well,
people.
I feel like this has evolved into like American football, rugby, like
well, if you want to watch people die, you don't
actually
even,
die though.
yeah. If you want to watch people die, you don't have to watch Coliseum. You can go on YouTube and look up footage from the Middle East.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm thinking of more of like a
he's talking about like
a well-funded
Gladiator.
sport where you enter. If you win, you get glory and fame. If you lose, you're dead. Maybe they spare you. Who knows? But there's like the lion fighting, but all of it ends up with the main event, which is gladiatorial combat. Like, I think I would be a little curious to go watch.
I don't know. So here's the thing. I think that it's a cool concept because it gives the people a way to get out of their situation, right? Like death row inmates, and they're fighting, right? And one of them gets to, like, if he wins 50 times, he can have his life back. That's pretty cool.
50? Oh my god!
I mean, that's how it was though. Like it wasn't easy to like make it out when they got that wooden sword with their like name on it or whatever that set them free. Like that wasn't easy. Like, have you guys seen what's the show? Spartacus.
I have not actually.
Spartacus is pretty cool. A lot of nudity. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But the show overall, great story. Anyway, he's a gladiator. That's like his premise. But yeah, so like they had to fight like tons of matches. Like it wasn't just like a one-on-one, like one hit, you're done. It was like 50 matches, right? So I think if you gave someone the chance to do that, I think that concept is cool. But I think going to watch somebody die is kind of not cool.
You also can't have animals in this day
Yeah,
and age.
yeah.
I mean, if the circus is getting rid of animals, you can't put
No animals.
You can't have killing
I
lions.
know, but part of me thinks I probably wouldn't be able to openly support it, but it might be fun to watch.
It's kind of
an inherent part of me.
I think the concept is cool, but I don't think it would be cool to watch. I wouldn't want to watch someone get cut into pieces. I think it'd be considered cruel and unusual punishment, but
Definitely.
I do wonder if we should provide, just in the topic, any way, and regardless of your views on death row, assuming the death penalty maintains, not just getting rid of it, what would be the way you think they should be able to like work that off? And if there was one. Now, obviously, some people don't agree with the death penalty, and regardless of that, just assuming it is in place, and there's a way that you can get out of it by doing something, what is it you do? Obviously, excluding gladiatorial combat.
Yeah,
You have to
I think they
assassinate.
already have this. It's called the justice system.
No,
No,
the
hold
justice
on.
system is how you get killed.
no. So you have to assassinate a tyrannical dictator.
See, I would like it if we were just like, all right, we're sending you to this country, and it was like, if this person we need dead, you kill him, you're free to go. I think that would be pretty cool.
I think it's a good idea, but you'd also have to set limits on it. Be like, look, you can go out and do this, but you can't come back here.
Yeah, it'd be like, all right, you're either going to die, or you're going to kill this person, and you do whatever
or,
you want from
topple
there.
a government, start a coup.
We'll drop you off in France and give you a couple bucks.
Right. Yeah.
Why France?
I don't know. France has room.
Yeah, there's room there.
I don't think I cannot find any moral answer to this question.
No, I don't think that. I think you're thinking too far out of the scope of this question.
Yeah, it's
John.
not like
That's-
we're writing the Hunger Games. We're not trying to reform the American political system. I
right.
mean,
It's just all ideas here, man.
You're right.
I do think it's always been curious to me how we're very desensitized as a species in that we were just like, well, these people have a little bit of food and they're either slaves or we're going to murder them. and oh, we have food. Like that was pretty much most of human society. And recently we were like, well, maybe not just food, but even things like oil. Like we've always just been killing people for reasons that are pretty rude, honestly. I mean, killing someone's pretty messed up.
Just rude.
But it does seem like we as Americans, and a lot of my views are very based in America because I don't know world politics. We'll get to yes, but I feel like there are still people dying a lot of the world to like pretty messed up stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just we've become able to ignore it
Well,
since we're no longer really a
here's
huge
the
part
thing.
in it, right?
Are we ignoring? So I think this question is on an individual basis again, because I think that some people are capable of people are capable of being annoying, but people are capable of ignoring situations like that. But I also think that the culture that we've grown up in has changed the way that we think about things. So in different cultures, it's completely acceptable to do these things. And I feel like that even extends to both parties in that situation. So like, it's culturally acceptable for someone to be executed for, X, Y, and Z, something that we would think is like horrendous. But on both sides in that situation, they're both okay with it. The person being executed and the person executing.
I don't think the person being executed is very okay
I
with
think,
it.
but I think, I mean, obviously they're probably not okay with dying. I mean, who knows? But I bet you, like, I guarantee you there's a culture that exists where people are just like, okay, I screwed up. My punishment is death. I mean, that not even as a punishment, but like seppuku, like that was honorable,
Yeah,
and that
for
was
sure.
suicide.
Yeah, I guess it's odd because I think on one point, I feel like we do ignore it more as a society in that we'll bring it to light, and then that's all. People will be like, "This is happening," and then nothing changes. And I think something like seppuku, it's hard because I understand the cultural value of it, but I could never get behind allowing it. I'd always be like, this is wrong.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. It depends on where you
Exactly.
grew up.
Because you value life in a different way than they do.
Right.
Not that they didn't value their lives, but you guys have just set a different value for it.
Right. Like, so like the whole idea behind seppuku is like, I'm honoring my life and my family by doing this.
Yeah.
Which is weird to me. I
So
think
that's
there's-
almost a higher value.
Right.
I
To an extent.
I think
It depends on
there's-
who you ask.
There's
for-
honor in dying. I just have a hard time seeing it in killing yourself because it seems like you're preserving the honor you have, but often
Well, that's the thing.
because
It's
you
not
just
even
were
seen.
ashamed.
I mean, it's not seen as killing themselves as like we would see killing yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like it's a completely different situation. I think
Anyone
it's just
who's practiced in seppuku, please come
Yeah.
on the podcast and let us
Definitely.
know.
We'd love to have you.
yes.
So we were going to talk about what Asian economics or something.
No.
No.
Frank had a topic.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about East Asian politics and how it relates to the United States. So is there any question that you guys have that I might be able
What
to
part
answer?
of East Asia?
All right, so East Asia. So I'm talking like Southeast Asia to East Asia. I know a little bit about what's going on in India, talking like Malaysia, Brunei, Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, South Korea, Japan. I don't know very much about Russia. That's kind of like Northeast Asia, but they're still technically kind of involved in East Asia. But also the United States is a huge player in East Asia. Like, I don't know if it's really that known, but the United States is almost the dominant power in East Asia, even though you have China there. I mean, that's obviously depends on who you ask and what numbers you look at to determine that. But basically, there's not a dominant power in East Asia, and the United States is just as big of a player as the countries that are actually there. But anyways, any
So,
questions
well,
about?
give us the crash course on what's happening in East Asia.
Oh man, dude. Crash course. All right, so I'll just hit the big points here. So basically, what the trend is of recent politics is that the United States is basically backing off of East Asia, as in we're not really strong allies with them anymore. And that's kind of seen
All
across
those countries.
Yeah. Like so here's the thing. So we have the United States interest in East Asia is to have a free and open Indo-Pacific region. That's the blanket statement. So free and open means like free travel, not necessarily monetarily free, but like being able to navigate. So there's being able to travel through it, being able to trade through it, also enforcing like global laws, so like laws that were set by the UN in East Asia. So like talking about like territorial seas and things like that. And basically the United States, that's their interest, but the United States is backing away from making any strong alliances in East Asia because of what's happening in China. Because I don't know, like, I mean, obviously China's like a big player now, but China was not a big player until like the 2000s. I mean, like through the 80s it was like basically the 70s, President Nixon went over there and made, talk to the Chinese and normalize relations. And then through the Cold War, we were pretty good with them because we wanted them on our side against Russia. And then in the 90s to the 2000s, we had some pretty good trading deals that kept us afloat. And then 9/11 and then the financial crisis of 2008 actually helped to improve our relationship with China as well, because they helped us out a lot. And then also the war against terror, China also helped the United States out in. So we have all these things. So basically China hasn't really become like this, like if you were to ask someone in the United States today, what do you think of China? They'd probably think, oh, evil country, like, we're not friends with them. They're, bad, all that stuff,
Yeah,
right?
the media portrays them
Right.
like that.
But that wasn't a thing until like 2010, like 10 years ago. Like we were like kind of like decent allies with China up until then. So China's rising, right? Booming population, booming economy, fastest growing economy in the world. And then, depending on what numbers you use, it's the strongest economy in the world. So China has all this power right now economically on the like world stability scale, but their military isn't up to par with the United States yet. And that's basically the differing factor. So because of all this stuff that's going on, China is investing in all these different countries in East Asia and also around the world. And because of tensions between like Japan and China, for example, the United States is basically making really vague alliances with all the countries in East Asia that they can, so that if something were to happen, we don't get dragged into it unless we want to start it. And so basically what's happening is that you have countries, you have middle powers like Australia, Japan, and South Korea, who are not able to protect themselves against a Chinese aggression. So they're becoming more independent because the United States is backing off and they're freaking out. Like it's a big deal for them. So like for like Japan, for example, I'll just talk about Japan. Japan has their self-defense force. It's not even a military now.
Yeah, that's because of us, though.
Right, it is because of us, but it's also because of Japan. Because so even though like you could say like, yeah, we wrote their constitution, basically after World War II, the United States has been pressuring Japan to make a modern military sense. Like, but the Japanese people themselves do not want that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's this. So the huge debate going on in Japan right now is about the military. The last president that was in there, he actually just left, and they're looking for a new guy now. But he was working on making the military stronger, and he got a ton of bad feedback from Japan about that. And the United States supported it, and we're still supporting them. So, but anyways, long story short, a lot of stuff is going on in East Asia right now, and it's because China's getting more powerful and the United States is making vague relationships, and nobody can really count on one or the other. South Korea is leaning towards China. Japan is leaning towards the United States. Australia leans towards the United States. Vietnam leans towards the United States. Malaysia, Brunei, India, they're all becoming basically independent. And then not to mention Taiwan, who is like poor Taiwan. Taiwan is technically like Taiwan. Like, so you guys know about the stuff that happened in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
like kind of recently.
It
So
was still
Sort of.
going on.
I've heard about it, but not exactly.
So Hong Kong basically, historically and contemporarily, they don't really want to be a part of China because they want to have a different government than the CCP, and the CCP is the Chinese Communist Party. So they want to have a different government, which is more like democratic. Same thing with Taiwan. So they've basically been resisting CCP control for as long as they can. And they've been having like protests and riots and things like that, and then China really like beefed up its forces in Hong Kong, and it's basically like just like trashing Hong Kong right now.
Yeah.
So Hong Kong is fighting, as much as they can, but Hong Kong I think is a lost cause right now. They're pretty screwed, and I feel bad for the people that live there.
Too bad there's not like a Hong Kong Avengers.
Yeah, I know, right? so anyway, and then you got Taiwan. Well, Taiwan has the benefit of being an island, and that plays a huge part because even though China has a huge military and can put their forces in Taiwan if they wanted to, it's like just that extra barrier for them. So Taiwan, they've been fighting against the CCP basically since World War II because we didn't even recognize China as we see it as China until the 70s when we normalized relations with them.
Yeah.
So Taiwan is technically a part of China according to basically the world right now, except Taiwan sees themselves as independent. And they have this really vague relationship with the United States. And basically the Taiwanese, they can't defend themselves like at all, basically. I mean, you have this huge, enormous economy with an enormous military, in China, which is at their doorstep. And then Taiwan, which is still technically part of China, has its own defense force, but its defense force is like nothing. But China has heavily invested in Taiwan, and Taiwan is also heavily invested in China. Taiwan has all these economic capabilities that China doesn't have, like production and things like that. So they're more like high tech. It's kind of like if you were to look at Japan, what they produce compared to China, it's kind of like what Taiwan is. They're more high tech. So Taiwan has a pretty decent economy, but they're also all intertwined in their economies with each other. So China's, even though it has a huge economy, China's economy is dependent on Taiwan, and Taiwan's economy is heavily dependent on China, but they don't want to be the same part. But the United States is basically like, all right, we'll sell you guns, but not really. And if something happens, we may or may not be there.
That is crazy because I think about all the times in history the U.S. has just been like, we're not involved in this, but we're giving people guns. And now there's more conflict, and we are not involved. Like,
well,
it's such a. It feels shady.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is shady. It's like Taiwan is basically backed up against a wall, and they're stuck between the United States and China, and they can't really make a decision because China is like, all right, well, President Xi Jinping of China just released like this year that it's their objective to control Taiwan. Basically, that's like he really wants to do it, and the United States basically hasn't said anything besides we'll help you. Like we officially have a strong unofficial alliance with Taiwan. That's what
Nice.
that's what the State Department says. The State Department says we have a strong unofficial relationship with Taiwan.
Interesting.
So what does that mean? A strong unofficial relationship? Like that's what I'm saying. Like Taiwan basically can't do anything besides rely on people who don't want to do anything.
Well,
Not to imagine being in Taiwan and you're like, well, we always know our unofficial allies will come to our aid.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so as an average American listener to the booming podcast Triptide, what does the relationship between the United States and Taiwan matter to me?
It's honestly, so I mean, I guess if you don't care about what's going on in the world and if you don't care about anything outside of the United States, then it doesn't mean anything. The only thing that it could mean for you is if there is a conflict there, it could drag us into World War III. depending on the reactions of the United States and China on what happens. But I mean, I would say that the bigger thing here is that comparing Taiwan to the United States, Taiwan is basically like a modern version of the U.S. Revolution. We had to rely on France, and France was an unofficial ally at the same time, because France and England were going at it. So it's basically the same situation. So like, if you find the ideals behind the American Revolution, to be part of like, what you support, then I would say you should be concerned with what's going on in Taiwan, because it's basically part two of that. And we're France and China is Britain.
What sucks is France came in and they were like, well, we're going to send you like 300 troops and they'll last a while. Like these muskets aren't going to hit them anytime soon. Whereas now with all this new weaponry, I feel like people die so fast.
Well, so that's, I mean, like even on that level though, that's like kind of like, even though you said 300 troops, like that's kind of basically the relationship that we have with Taiwan. It's kind of like if we were to get involved with, if there was a conflict between Taiwan and China, the only reason why we would get involved is if we really thought Taiwan had a good shot of winning.
What does it mean for us economically if China takes control of Taiwan?
Not a whole lot if we don't get involved.
Okay, the second we do get involved, though.
The second we get involved, I mean, we're already in a trade war with China, and if we were to go to conflict with them, everything would be shut down.
Yeah.
And the United States doesn't have control over their economy, so even though it would be shut down, China would still be getting the economic benefits of having U.S. relationships without the United States being involved with China.
Yeah.
What's weird is how this does kind of exemplify the ability of Americans to ignore problems we were talking about. Like, as much as all of this seems very relevant, and I'm sure if I learned it in a history class in 30 years, it would be more likely I'd learn about it than today, it feels like, just through these conversations. Because, so many people, no interest in it, no idea what's happening. And I got Disney Plus this Christmas, so I pretty much could watch Star Wars for like a month without knowing about the outside workings of, China and Taiwan. Right. And I think America just has a lot of that ability to distract yourself, which compiles with the disinterest in other countries that we kind of foster.
Well, part of it, I mean, to get all conspiracy here, but part of it is what your media focuses on.
Well, so
if you consume all of CNN, if you consume all of Fox, it doesn't matter. They're going to talk about...
I mean, even on a deeper level than that, like what your Instagram page has or what your TikTok page has, like the only information you're getting is basically information that you want to see.
Exactly. And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's extremely dangerous.
I think it's up to the individual to look on the other side, and Americans are just dumb. And not all Americans, of course, but I think a lot of people are, again... I don't think you're really Republican if you don't know what the Democrat's running for. And I don't think you're really Democrat if you don't know what the Republican's running for. I think you're just blue or red. I think if you don't know the opposition to something you stand for, you're just following it. And I think a lot of Americans take the easy road of this sounds good, so we don't need to know what else is going on. And that applies to broader subjects like this too. Well, China made this toy I have, so they're good. But they're communist, so they're bad. Like, they don't really care about what they're doing. They'll just take the base concepts until somebody says we're at conflict with China, and then everyone goes, well, how did this happen? What? We've been trade partners for years, and nothing's ever gone wrong, They just don't look into it.
The concentration camps.
Oh, my gosh,
Muslims
dude.
True, that did become big.
So
insane.
Scary.
It's insane. Like, it is a literal... What is happening is what was happening in Germany before World War II.
To give Disney credit, how do you feel about Disney being like, we're not going to film in Georgia because Black Lives Matter, but we're going to film in China where there's concentration camps.
Literal concentration camp blows my mind. it's like this thing that like this is what I mean. I guarantee you, this is what happened in World War II. Before World War II, people were like, "Oh yeah, this is going on," but like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so bad, it's so terrible, but then
We do
nothing.
and it's
then
not
you-
covered anywhere.
No.
We rolled up, and then we were like, I can't believe this is how bad things are.
Right.
And I feel like if we go to China, and we go to war with China, we'll go to the concentration camps
just
and free
find-
people, and we'll be like, I can't believe this was
Oh
happening.
my
Like, this is
gosh.
crazy, China.
This is-
You feel bad now because we caught you, like
Yeah.
as though we weren't.
Like, you
always
don't think
aware.
anybody else had no idea that Hitler was doing what he was doing?
I think
And they
most
just-
of Germany probably did, but because of the lack of communication, I
Like, the
think the
people that
average
live there,
American
too.
maybe didn't.
Well, we were flying over them
Yeah.
and taking pictures like nonstop.
But yeah, I don't know if the government really like
Knew what it
publicized
was.
that to the people. They
no,
were
they
like,
didn't know what it was, but they knew that it was bad because it's a pattern. You just see all these buildings with large amounts of people in this tiny enclosed area. Like, that's not a good
like,
thing.
I wonder what could be going on there. That looks a lot like our internment camps.
but they were just like, well, we're at war and these people don't have guns, so we're
So,
okay.
Whether we knew they were good or bad, we knew that there was a pattern going on, and something was happening. And yeah, we know about it today,
And nothing's happening.
and nothing's happening about it.
So-
And it's sad.
Well,
it's,
here,
it's
let
incredibly
me
sad.
kind of tell you why nothing's happening.
Okay.
So it's a big deal, right? Obviously, people are being put in concentration camps. They're being separated from their families. I guarantee you they're being killed. I don't have any backing for that because I don't work in the CIA. But I can guarantee you there are Muslims being slaughtered in
Are
China.
we all a target of the CCP now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Awesome.
If the CCP is listening to this, we've been targeted.
Thank you for tuning in.
If you
So-
want to catch us, the Pluto police will have to fight you for it.
But here's the thing: it's like this is the reason why nothing's happening is because of what would happen if we went to war with China, right? So let me bring it back to Taiwan, for instance. So let's say Taiwan gets attacked and the United States doesn't get involved to save world stability, basically. We would very much damage our alliances in East Asia, probably across the world as well. Because, I mean, like, imagine, like, if you were Japan and you saw Taiwan getting bombed one day and the United States did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be like, well, you know,
Is the UN
screwed.
also not involved in this?
the UN, I mean, the UN is involved like they are in everything, but, like,
Guys, please stop fighting.
what can the UN do outside of a third world country?
Yeah.
When the two top players in this basically Cold War that's happening right now, when they're part of the same Security Council on the United Nations, what are they going to do? Nothing.
Well, we're just going to talk about their feelings.
The United States funds the UN.
Yeah.
What is the UN going to do if the United States is like, nah, we're going to declare war on China. You can't do anything about it. They're going to be like, okay.
China, could you please not bomb Taiwan? We would really appreciate
Now,
it.
if China were to do something, then I think there's a case for the UN putting sanctions on them and having the support of the United States behind it. But if the United States were to make the first move, which I don't think would ever happen, I don't think the United States would make the first move on something that big. But if the United States were to make the first move, the UN would have no power. But anyways, the reason why nothing's going on, the reason why nobody's doing anything about these Chinese concentration camps, and the reason why nobody's doing anything about Taiwan, the reason why nobody's doing anything about Hong Kong, the reason why nobody's doing anything about the South China Sea, nobody's doing anything about North Korea, all of that is because anything that happens in Asia will basically destroy almost 2/3 of the world economy. Because the Indo-Pacific is a huge economic bloc.
Yeah.
And they are intertwined like no other place that exists. Like, the United States is economically independent, basically. Like, okay, yeah, sure, we're dependent on China and we're dependent on these people, but we really aren't, like, practically. Like, and we have this relationship with, you know, Canada and Mexico where we have, you know, we trade with each other and all this stuff, and we're technically an economic bloc or whatever. But if Mexico were to stop, we'd be like, okay. Or if both of them were to stop, it wouldn't really be I mean, it would be a big deal, but it wouldn't be, you know, world stability dropping big deal. But in East Asia, China is dependent on Japan. Japan is dependent on South Korea. South Korea is dependent on China. South Korea is dependent on Japan. Japan's dependent on China. And that's for every single state in East Asia. I mean, that's like everybody is dependent on the other because they aren't able to produce. Like, they cannot be economically independent the way that they are. They can't be economically independent. So if something were to happen, like an actual war, it would be a huge hit to the entire world economy. I mean, the United States would be done. Europeans would be done. Like, the only way to get out of that would be to throw basically the concept of money out the window for the duration of the war.
We really seem not to need conflict with China, but revolution within China and like an overthrowing of the government.
Yeah, exactly, because the only way that it can get solved. Oh, all right, so here's my solution. You guys ready for this? Here's my solution to the China dilemma.
I'm sure they would love to hear it.
Yes. So my solution is China. Their economy is held up by the production of goods for Western countries and also East Asian countries, right? But these East Asian countries are in a good enough relationship with Western countries that they might be willing to listen to incentives or ideas from the United States and from Europe. So European countries, East Asian countries, and the United States, what they need to do is incentivize their companies that are involved with China to leave. Like the United States, I mean, how many trillions of dollars have we spent on stimulus, like, so far? Like, trillions of dollars, right? Put that money, I mean, obviously that means that money doesn't mean anything anymore because we were also told that they couldn't cover student loan debt, but student loan debt is like over $1 trillion or something like that. But then the first
$1 trillion is also a mind-numbing number.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
That you could never comprehend.
Right, so these numbers are completely abstract, that money basically doesn't even mean anything anymore. But anyways, so we incentivize independent, companies. So like Apple, for example. So I'm just going to use Apple for this. So let's say we're like, Apple, move your production to Vietnam. And they're like, no, it's going to cost us millions of dollars to do that. And then the United States is going to be like, all right, well, we're going to fund Vietnam to be able to support the production needs of Apple. And we're also going to lower the cost of shipping, and we're also going to give you money to move to Vietnam. Like, we're going to make it so that they make money off of moving out of China. And so if you were to do that with a combined effort from all the Western countries and East Asian countries, and if you were able to mobilize all of these independent companies out of China, China would not have an economy anymore. They wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't be able to loan money to countries.
But if China suddenly loses their economy, aren't we back in that world instability?
No, because we moved all the companies out of China, and those companies are still doing good.
Venezuela would pop off. Where would you move it? I don't know.
Vietnam,
not Venezuela.
Not Venezuela.
I heard V, and I was like,
no.
Venezuela's in a different part of the world, so it took me a sec.
Vietnam was just an example, but like, there's a ton. Like, you can move it to India,
Delaware,
Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, like all these countries. We could move all these companies to different countries, right? And basically take away China's economy and maintain the companies that are holding up the world economy at the same time. Mm-hmm. Take care of China. And then after that happens, then we can go in and have war with them because it won't be economically destroying on a world scale. And then we can go solve the concentration camp problem.
So
yeah, war has proven to solve every problem that we've ever had.
Well, I'm just saying if
that's sadly very true.
If they don't give up the concentration camps after they've already been economically destroyed, then we can go in and declare war on them.
I don't know. I feel like they might, not to be a downer, but I feel like Germany definitely was stronger because of its concentration camps. So if they're backed against a wall, they might just rampantly up their concentration campage.
Maybe.
one
But
for economics
at least
and
you-
science, and two because they feel like they're about to get screwed.
Maybe, but at least you would be able to bring it to an end.
Yeah, we
at
would
that
be able
point.
to go in without losing the
Right.
entire economy. So,
But I think what's important to say here, after saying all this stuff, after basically just ripping China, is that China is not a stupid country. Like, they know
No.
what they're doing.
Of
They
course.
are. It's very intelligent. The CCP is a very intelligent government that knows how to play the game. Basically, they know how to
Winnie
play
the Pooh is
economics.
the top peg, yo. He knows what's going on.
So they
If
know.
we weren't a target before, we're not going to hit the Chinese market anytime soon with this podcast.
No. So China, they're smart, right? Like the CCP, they are doing a good job of being a government, basically. I mean, that
That's
depends
good.
on your definition of what a government should be. But I would say on the fact that they're able to maintain a military, maintain an economy, make themselves richer, increase the living standards of the Chinese people. They're doing a decent job of being a modern government. The Chinese also, and when I say the Chinese, I'm talking specifically about the CCP,
Okay.
because I also don't want that to be confused, because the biggest problem with this thing that's going on with China is that it's hurting the relationships between individuals. And I think that's terrible, because Chinese people are the same as United States people. You know what I mean?
Of
Like
course.
we're all human beings and we're all people. But the problem is that this Cold War going on with the CCP is also maybe how people thought about Russians during the Cold War. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, it's even come down to where the United States FBI, I mean, like my school, for example, has a ton of students from China that come over here. Well, the FBI is basically shutting down classes that are about Chinese philosophy. They're shutting down these things that support, like, Chinese ideals and, like, all these things. And that's terrible. Like, I mean, what you're doing is you're making sure that these people are not able to, like, you're basically what you're doing by shutting down the, like, relationships between the United States and China is that you're making sure that the Chinese can never see what a United States person looks and, like, what they look and they act like and how they are as a normal human being, and American people are never going to see Chinese people about, you know, how they're normal people.
Yeah.
And so both sides, you're just going to have a demonization of both sides. And I think that it's going to lead to racism. It's going to lead to xenophobia and all these bad things are going to come out of this just because our governments can't peacefully agree. I mean, there's a peaceful option out of this. There's a way to get out of it without having any of this problem. But
is demonization moral when there's a Holocaust going on, though?
but it's not, I'm talking about the individuals that live in China.
I do say no to that, because to think that you can't learn anything from one of the oldest countries this planet knows, not to undermine the atrocities that's happening in China, but to restrict learning of any kind, of any culture, is just something that I would be totally against.
And I did like learning a lot about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching, maybe. There's like two names, and
Yeah,
but-
Confucianism.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
So I thought, the few things I learned about Chinese philosophy were very,
Chinese
Fascinating
philosophy,
inside,
Chinese art, like
Mhm.
yeah, just to think that you can't. To think that you can restrict learning
Right,
as
that's-
a whole,
that's the
no matter what
problem.
side you're on.
For,
Because restricting learning is not only going to cause, like, the learning problem, but like I said earlier, like, it's going to cause racism, xenophobia. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to think that Chinese people are terrible and, like, all these things. So
I
I just hope it doesn't
definitely-
get to that point, because hopefully it's not there now. But
I think the coronavirus definitely showed a bit of that latent
Yeah,
ability
Yeah.
for people
Well,
just
yeah.
to pounce on somebody for their ethnicity and
Right.
assume it has something to do with something unrelated. But
like,
I
how
did-
stupid do you have to? I mean, like, come on.
I did want to, for one of our last bits, I got my CRI genetics results. So basically, it consists of two parts, European and South Asian. So what percent European do you guys think I am? Since we're talking about world
I would
relations.
say like 60 to
No,
60 to 80.
I'm going with like 98.6.
I am 97.5% European. Really put things in perspective. But what I found out is, so my first two ethnicities, give me your guesses. I think you know.
German and Irish.
Yeah. British Isles, so technically England and Ireland,
okay.
is 27.8. Then we got Germany at 23. So two things I never knew. I have 8% French, 7% Scandinavian. The 2.5 from South Asia is Bengali. And there's two 16%. One you'd never guess is Slavic. And
Okay.
what is this last 16%, do you think?
It's European.
Is it
Mm-hmm.
okay?
I don't know, Polish.
You said Scandinavia already.
Yeah, so I'm 7% Scandinavian.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Spain.
It's actually 16% Italian.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've recently learned that about myself, so I'm very excited. To all my Italian family out there, I would like to unite us all in...
Wait, did you say 16% or 16th of a percent?
16%.
Oh, okay.
If I were 16th of a percent, I would not have mentioned it.
Cherokee.
Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's possible that I would have
who
that
was
little
that
percent in
senator
there.
that said she was Native American? Elizabeth Warren.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I didn't want to say
she
it.
said she was Native American. It totally was. So, and then Bengali, you said? Do you know what that's about?
2.5% Bengali. So the idea is someone in my past, it looks like, was Gunjati Indian or something. So I guess I just have like a few Indian ancestors in there.
Very
And then
cool.
everyone else was from Europe. And that
My-
makes up my DNA, which I thought was interesting.
How did I wonder how that happened though? Like, I wonder if it was like the
Boy
British
meets girl.
occupation of.
My mom did 23andMe, and when her results came back, she was like, well, this was a fucking waste because it was 100% Irish. And she was like, I knew this already.
Why'd she get it?
So my mom is a pure blood.
I always thought I was Welsh. That's just like family legend, but I'm apparently a lot Scandinavian and a lot Irish, and I'm not English at all, and I'm not.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I'm not even. I mean, I guess if depending on who you ask, I'm not British, and then depending on who you ask,
Have you guys
I am
ever been to
British, but-
Ellis Island?
No.
No.
It's super cool. We got to see someone on my dad's family and how they changed our last name. It was like LATAVIC or something. I think something very close to that, and how they Americanized to our last name. It was very cool.
I can't remember. I feel like Gurky might have been like Von Gurken at some point. Something crazy. But I have to go to Ellis Island and see if they can tell
Gherkin,
me.
Schmirkin, Herkin, Nurkin.
Gurken, Starken, Durken, Durken. Not even German at this point. Just Herken, Durken.
Just noises.
Messy.
Do you have any recommendations
For
this week?
So I guess since we don't have a song of the week picked out, maybe I'll ask if he minds if we use it. But I know Jack Delamater did just drop a new new EP.
No, I think it's New Year's Day. So I guess by the time you post it, we can probably shout that out.
Well, he did
Yeah.
post something.
I think it's called Why to Sleep.
So yeah, let me just check his account real quick. Should we do something Sean likes quick?
Okay, my recommendation this week is going to be a YouTube channel. His name is NerdWriter1, all one word. This guy talks about everything from film to art to just screenwriting in general. If you like film, if you like animation, if you like art, totally check this guy out. Frank, any recommendations?
Yeah, read some Asian political news from Asian newspapers. Super interesting stuff. Used it to write papers on. Completely different information than you would ever get out of the United States. So definitely do some research on that if you find that interesting.
Yeah, so I've just seen his post. Jack Delamater dropped an EP, and he dropped a little video for it, but it's Wide Asleep.
Yeah,
So
definitely check that out. Whether we use it or not.
Yeah, no.
check out
Regardless,
the
he makes
song.
some absolute
Yeah.
bangers. They go hard in the paint, as they say.
Mm.
And as always, if you want to help us end the terrible relations going on in Hong Kong and Taiwan, use my Robinhood link down below. We will both get a free stock. Make sure to donate to the podcast.
Stonks.
And the money all goes directly to us. And as a result, our intelligence will help us sleep at night.
Do we have a question challenge for this week as well?
So, yeah, I'm going to make an Instagram post. Thank you for reminding me. Your
Okay.
question challenge, and I'll probably make a post on Paranormal Snail for people to submit, is things that we can use in our interview with Steven that's coming up.
Yes,
Things you
please
have to
keep leaving
question
questions
Steven.
for
We're going to
Steven.
do an hour with Steven. If we have enough questions, we'll just pick. But I feel like we'll probably get through most of them. I know Shimon McGee has said he has some questions ready, so I hope he submits some. We're
Excellent.
counting on you. After we told you not to comment, you are the main source
You
of
have
our
now become a
content.
superhero.
We'll have to have him on someday, our number one super fan. But yeah, if you have anything to ask to Steven, our editor, please leave that on the Instagram at Paranormal Snail Entertainment or in the YouTube comments below. If you watch on YouTube, subscribe so we feel better about ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Triptide.
Oh, Triptide.
All right.
Yeah.